Hello, I'm Paula Tomás Marques. I'm the director of Two Times João Liberada, screening at Perspectives here in the Berlinale.
I'm Caio Amado. I play a role in the film, and I'm also the visual effects artist.
And I'm Jorge Jácome. I'm the editor of Duas Vezes João Liberada.
Liberada? Irei já.
Ok, vamos a outra, rápido. Isso. Ok, foi melhor. Eu acho que este gesto já significa outra coisa, não é? Mesmo assim, eu acho que se a João reagir ao toque com mais clareza, também fica mais claro que está desconfortável. Não é?
Sim, também acho. Bora lá então repetir rápido.
Ok, então vamos lá mais uma vez. Vá. Tiago, tu entras passar uns segundos, ok? Vá, bora.
Hi and welcome to the 39th Teddy Award. My name is Jan-Felix Wuttig and today I'm here with Paula Tomás Marques, Caio Amado and Jorge Jácome to talk about their film Two Times João Liberada. Thanks guys for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. I found Two Times João Liberada to be an incredibly powerful and very intricate film. Could you maybe tell us how the idea for the film came to you?
Actually, everything started because before this film, I already started like an investigation around gender dissidents on history, and I read a lot of books around this theme, and I found a lot of trials related to some of these people, and I really wanted to portray someone to kind of remember that LGBT and queer people existed a long way before, and that it's not a contemporary invention. We were always here, and I wanted to portray some of the things I was reading because it resonated a lot with some of the experiences, contemporary experiences of that me and other friends had. Of course, very different. We're talking about being persecuted by the Inquisition. We cannot talk about the same thing, of course. But it started with that problem of how to portray one of these people. And we understood that it didn't really make sense to portray one of these trials because these people always were referred to in an oppressive way because it was the Inquisition that would write about them. It was not a subjective writing, I would say. So it didn't make sense to portray only with having those documents on as a basis for writing the film. Yeah. And I created like kind of this character, João Liberada, that would connect some of different trials and different people from the past, and João Liberada kind of was born from that mix. It had to be in a fiction. It had to be like through the fiction that we would introduce these ideas of how history was being written about these people. And when I showed that first draft about João Liberada, that fictional character with their narrative, I showed June, and we were already finding things that didn't make sense for us to represent, like violent stuff or that the character was going through, and a lot of questions erupted from there. And we understood that those questions were much more interesting than just portraying one person. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the starting point for the film. Was those questions of we didn't feel comfortable portraying this and that on this narrative. So the film will be those questions. It will be then we started to construct another narrative about the director. But that was the starting point, I think.
Now, how did you work together with your actors like Caio to kind of establish that sort of? I mean, it's a very it's a film within a film, so it gets kind of I would guess It's you have to keep a lot in mind when you're playing these roles. How did you establish that kind of trust, or how did you establish the scenes? Was there a lot of improvisation, or did you just put it down very in the script? Or
Yeah, some things were totally scripted, like the historical parts, for example. All of those are scripted. Also because we wanted that feeling of being scripted, because it was the director's film, and we wanted things to be more controlled.
Yeah.
But most of the rest of the film was it was like we had a plan of the shots, like every shot, and some of the texts were written and another were like kind of improvised, but most of it was like we even had even what we didn't have written, we had kind of rehearsed. So so yeah.
Okay. What was your experience like? Was it a lot of fun to kind of go between the script and the improvisation, or was it? How did you find sort of your role or your voice?
Well, I only play 5 minutes, so I can only talk for myself, and it was a very special scene, so it was just 5, but it also maybe it was one of the most intense scenes to be shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel.
I feel so.
And it was just very concrete.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so there was very defined things I needed to say and do. The casting went pretty well, so I think we got along from the start. That's laid a nice foundation. But then in regard to the psychological aspect of the scene, we didn't delve at all into entering this impersonation, or at least for me. I mean, of course, for myself, I did it on my own, because you gotta.
Yeah.
But it was just very concrete and scripted. So
yeah.
But we also had that scene, that improvised scene.
In the second day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had a problem during the shooting, so we had to, one of the scenes with Caio and André, it was improvised in the moment, because we couldn't shoot in the place we wanted, so we arranged a place and invented a scene in the moment.
Yeah.
So that was the only scene that was improvised in the moment, like really improvised, like a whole scene.
Yeah, but that scene was, so I did have even less to do in this scene, so yeah. I was just sitting, pretending to
reading,
to be very much into what was being said. Yeah.
How much of the film do you feel has been done after the shooting? I mean, in the editing room, in the post-production, basically.
So this is the third time that me and Paula that we work together, and in the editing process, it's a place where you really start to understand the other. Yeah. So since it's the third film that we did together, there are a lot of things that we've been learning with each other, and I feel that in this film, and maybe because it was a feature film, so we had more space to work with, because the 2 previous ones were short films. I remember that Paula, in the script, and we talked before the shooting, she was also looking for a structure that could have a little bit of possibilities to find out things after the shooting in the editing. So she had a very she had like a very conscious idea of some kind of structure, but I think that she also had moments that she knew that we could play after. And in the first part of the process, Paula made a first structure, a very classical structure, very narrative structure, because she knew also that we could play with that. For example, I'm thinking that because the film plays a lot with the idea of ghosts. And so we started to think, how can we play with ghosts and cinema, that there is a very strong connection between the two subjects. And one of the elements that they were not supposed to be in the film, for example, is these black and white images full of noise, the grain, that it's actually the images that they come from when you are shooting a film. There is a video assist that records an image in black and white of what is the actual image of the film.
Yeah.
And so she had that archive of these images in a folder in the editing session. And so I started to watch and started to think that maybe, for example, this could be a possibility of the ghost of João Liberada could invade or could hunt the film itself. And so we started to play for that. So answering your question, I would say that there was a structure, but then in the editing, and we edit for 1.5 years, maybe.
It was less.
Wow.
It was much less, actually.
1
the
year?
editing really was less than 1 year, actually.
Yeah,
and
but
we were also 2 months out of the country, so we
But-
didn't edit those 2 countries.
but it's a long process compared to other films.
Yeah, I know, for sure.
Because we also like to be together and to discover the materials and discover the possibilities of film itself in the editing. So yeah, we discover a lot of things during the editing.
So there's actually a whole nother level that came out in the editing room, basically.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's funny because at the same time, when we were shooting, we were watching the video system and we were like, maybe we could use this. And then I remember like Christiana, the producer, saying like, Jorge will love this. You know this is going to be on the film, right? So we were shooting it, and sometimes we're like, let's record this, because you could record the video assist or not. And so there's not all the rushes have also the video assist version. But sometimes we'll remember, it will be like, let's record maybe. Maybe we will use it later. And because we also knew that it had this meta cinematographic layer, so that it could make sense. But yeah.
But Paula is a filmmaker that she's very conscious when she's shooting about the potential of the material that she will have in the editing. So everything came very almost done in the way that it's a pleasure to work with good material, you know? And I had that pleasure.
That's good to hear. Yes. It's amazing that there's this whole other layer that basically came out in you guys working together in the editing room. I want to go back to the main theme for me that was in the film, which is kind of this silencing and misinterpretation of queer voices in history. I was just wondering how you felt that on a personal level, like all three of you, how important that was to you as people.
We thought of me and June. I remember discussing a lot about like how would a person like this would feel about being portrayed? Like, what if it was us being portrayed? And like do that kind of exercise. Of course, it's impossible to do that exercise thinking of the 17th century or 18th century, because we live in the same time. But we were really thinking like, one thing for sure, these people didn't want to be like a martyr or didn't want to be like representative of something. They were just living their lives. So I think that was kind of the point. That was an important thing to have in mind while shooting, I think, and while editing everything. But also we could only also play with it at the same time, because it's because I think the film is also about the impossibility of these acts of representation. Like it's, and in the end, there's no fair way of portraying. There is ways and ways of portraying, but not like the fair way of doing it. Like, and there will always be someone that doesn't agree with the way that something is done. So we also wanted that to be part of the discussion of how to tell these stories. It had to be something that could be opening questions all the time and not closing questions all the time. It had to be something to open, not to close. But I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
you are, yes, very much so.
But yeah, we thought a lot about that. I don't know. If you wanna like add something like another question. After this
I kind of
one,
feel like this was sort of central to my viewing of the film. But it's also interesting that you say that it's kind of like it doesn't have to be that one interpretation. It can be open, and there will always be people who don't recognize it or who will disagree with it. Because that's in the end that's the fight between the director and the actors, right? That's where he is kind of has his own vision and they have a different vision, and then it kind of collides. Actually, I have a question about that. Where did you come up with the idea with that kind of the state of him? You know, like he is visited by the ghost of João, and then he just kind of he goes into some sort of freeze. Where did that come from?
Well, that's it made sense for something to be like we wanted the ghosts of João Liberada to have some kind of power of her portraying, of her representation of her portraits. So we thought that maybe this person would just want to be left alone, like she just doesn't want to be represented at all. She just wants to be like, maybe she wants to be remembered, I don't know, but maybe she doesn't want to be portrayed and crystallized in a film, you know? So I think that was kind of a way for the character João Liberada to express that. She would paralyze the director, and there will be questions around it. But the film, at least that film, would have to stop, and that would have to make everyone ask themselves what they were doing after all in that film. What were they portraying? Or so I think that was the that was the initial idea, but of course things have different interpretations. But it was like we wanted to give some kind of power to João Liberada, and that was her way of manifesting. That was a way of making everyone. It made everyone to have to ask themselves what was going on.
Yeah, very much. Did you ever have like sort of differing versions in after the shoot and post-productions where you went like, okay, maybe we can tell the story this way, but then sort of in the last moment maybe you realized, okay, that's not such a great idea?
I remember us talking, and it's related with your previous question also about how to think about queer subjects. And I remember that when we were editing the film, it was important to not be pedagogic. Does this exist in English? To not be pedagogic about some subjects. So it was almost like this balance between to have the most fun that we could have, and we try to push it to the limit, for example, to have more fun elements, because since the subject of the film and what is portrayed in the film, it's so heavy, and you can approach to these subjects in so many different ways. I remember that one of the wishes of Paula was to bring some fun elements to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Some light in the dark.
Some light in the dark. And this, I think, it changed during the process of the editing. How could we have fun? And having fun in cinema, I think we believe that it's not only in the narrative aspect, but it's also in the way that you watch the film. How can you play with the structure, play with time? So the element of playing was something that came up during the process.
Yeah, and I felt that was a very strong element in the film, as it is now, because even though the subject matter itself might be heavy, you can actually have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of playfulness in there. There's even, with the underlying ghost story, there's a fantastic element, and even the director being paralyzed in a sense, that is that can be seen as quite funny in a way, So there's different elements that you have that give the whole film a sort of light nature, I think. Yeah. Guys, I think that's already it from me. I want to thank you all so much for being here and for taking your time. And I wish you all the best for the premiere and the rest of the Berlinale.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.